to ask these three individuals to come to the podium today. First individual I'd like to introduce is Colonel retired Frank Monaco. He was born in Derby in June 24th, 1948. He was born in New Haven, Connecticut. He's the first of 5 children of Joseph and the late Vincenza Monaco of Derby, Connecticut. He grew up in Derby and was an Eagle Scout with Troop 3 under the guidance of the late Ed Strang. After graduating from Notre Dame High School in West Haven, Connecticut, he attended the United States Military Academy at West Point, New York, and graduated in June in 1970. Commissioned as a field artillery officer, he served with distinction with the 82nd Airborne Division at Fort Bragg and with the 8th United States Army in Korea. The second part of Colonel Monaco's career began when he attended graduate school, Information and Computer Science, Georgia Institute of Technology, Atlanta, Georgia. He was promoted to a major in 1981 while serving as a systems manager and instructor, Computer Graphics Laboratory, Department of Geography and Computer Science, United States Military Academy, West Point. After West Point, his next assignment was as the Chief Information Systems Branch, United States Army, Land Southeast, NATO, Izmir, Turkey, followed by a posting to Fort Drum with the activation of the 10th Mountain Division in 1986, where he was promoted to Lieutenant Colonel in 1987. In this final assignment to his military career, he was assigned as a Chief Information Officer for his alma mater, United States Military Academy at West Point. He was promoted to Colonel in 1993. He is married to the former Paulette Gail Petrino of Bridgeport, Connecticut. The Monacos have 4 sons: Army Captain Francis Joseph, West Point class of 1996, currently commanding headquarters and service battery, 2nd Battalion, 82nd Field Artillery, 1st Cavalry Division, Baghdad, Iraq, since March 15th, year 2004. Army Captain Michael Paul, West Point class of 1998, recently returned from Tikrit, Iraq, and now at Fort Hood, Texas with the 4th Infantry Division, Air Force 1st Lieutenant Joseph Edward, United States Air Force Academy class, year 2001. Currently a C-17 jet transport pilot flying combat missions to Operations Iraqi Freedom and Enduring Freedom based in Germany and Charleston, South Carolina. And Jeffrey Albert, who enters his senior year at Sacred Heart University, Fairfield, Connecticut this fall. Since his retirement from active duty in June 24, 1997, Frank and his wife, Paulette, have resided in Carmel, New York. He is currently the Chief Information Officer and Vice President, Information Technology for Pace University, New York. I'd like to bring up to the podium at this time Colonel Frank Monaco.
I tell you, after that arrangement that we just heard, that was a tough act to follow, but I'm going to do my best. I'd like to tell everybody here, my wife and I are very honored to be back in my hometown of Derby. She's from Bridgeport, for this Memorial Day commemoration. And Tom asked me to talk a little bit about what's going to happen in Washington today. You see a picture of the memorial in front of you, and I'm going to expand a little bit about that memorial. My dad, Joe, who stood up in the back there, was a member of your generation, the greatest generation, and as many of the local Derby residents served with distinction and came back and raised their families with the ideals that are described in Tom Brokaw's book. Today at this spot, we join all the folks at our nation's capital as it begins a 100-day celebration of the World War II Memorial Dedication. From now until Labor Day, the celebration. So I urge you, if there's any way you can get to Washington, D.C. in that period, to see this memorial. Did you know that there were 16 million American soldiers that served in World War II? 16 million. 405,973 were killed in action. 671,278 were wounded in action. Fewer than 4 million World War II combat vets are still with us, and many of them right here, thank God. The memorial itself consists of a ceremonial entrance. You can see it in the picture afterwards. State pillars commemorating the 48 states at the time that sent soldiers and the possessions, U.S. possessions. An Atlantic and a Pacific arch on either flank of the memorial, commemorating the two major theaters in the war. And most importantly, a gold-plated starred wall in the center of the memorial. Each star represents 100 KIA. So when you visit the memorial, you'll see all of this there. It was conceived in 1987, and the way it was conceived was there was a corporal named Roger Durbin, and he was at a fish fry in Toledo, Ohio. It was a political event of some sort where you get a chance to talk to your politicians. And anyways, he got up and says, "Why the hell isn't there no memorial for World War II veterans in Washington, D.C.? And so the representative there was a lady named Marcy Capper. And she said, there is a memorial for World War II. It's called the Iwo Jima Memorial. But he said, that's for Marines, and it's not in Washington. So she said, I'll check it out, and she did, went back, and along with the members of her administration, passed a bill that eventually was signed by President Clinton in 1993. Construction began on the memorial August 2001, 1 month before September 11th. Corporal Durbin, unfortunately, did not live to see the completion of his dream to have a World War II memorial. He died 4 years before it was completed. Let me read you the entrance tablet, the inscription that's on the entrance tablet for the memorial. And the memorial sits right east of the Lincoln Memorial, the Washington Memorial. It's right in the center of all the big monuments in Washington, D.C. Here in the presence of Washington and Lincoln, one 18th century father and the other 19th century preserver of our nation, we honor those 20th century Second World War struggle, took up the struggle during the Second World War and made the sacrifices to perpetuate the gift our forefathers entrusted to us, a nation conceived in liberty and justice. In the words of our Secretary of State, Colin Powell, himself a combat veteran, every life given in the name of liberty is a life that has not been lost in vain. Memorials such as this make us remember the cost of freedom. As a retired U.S. Army colonel and the father of 2 active duty Army captains and 1 Air Force first lieutenant, I appreciate and applaud the magnitude of the service of the greatest generation in front of me. My father and all of you gentlemen and ladies that served. I served for 27 years in a relatively quiet and peaceful time, the middle 70s to the middle 90s. Everything changed on September 11th, 2001. And unfortunately, my sons are involved with what's changed in the world. And they will be involved, and their sons will be involved. It's going to be a long struggle. I'd like to introduce my son Mike, who just recently returned from a tour with the 4th Infantry Division into Crete, Iraq. This is the homeland of the hometown of Saddam Hussein. And he'll talk a little bit about some of the good things that you might not hear on the news that the 4th Infantry did while he was there for the last year. Mike?
Thanks, Ted. I've pretty much been journeying around the world with the U.S. Army my whole life, living at various Army posts and over in Turkey. I've lived at over 13 installations, whether as a dependent, as a cadet, or as an officer. There's only one place I've always come back to, and that place is here in Derby, Connecticut. And it's truly an honor for me to be standing before you all today in what I consider to be my true hometown here in the States. Citizens of the greatest generation in Derby, like my grandfather, Joseph Monaco, having served their country during World War II, they returned to raise families and follow-on generations, and now continue that their follow-on generations now continue to sacrifice and dedicate themselves to rid the world of dangerous threats to our freedom and enable others to enjoy our way of life here in America. I am proud to stand before you as a grandson of the greatest generation and present to you the recent accomplishments of my unit, the 4th Infantry Division, during our work over in Operation Iraqi Freedom. Before I start, I want to say the 4th Infantry Division played a part during World War II as well. They landed on Utah Beach June 6, 1944, and went on to do great things in Normandy. And I'm trying to tie into the fact that the Army goes rolling along, and me being here today is an example. The first 36 ships carrying Task Force Iron Horse arrived off of Turkey on 17 February of 2003. On 21 March, Task Force Iron Horse received the order to deploy through Kuwait, and the first ship began downloading on the 1st of April of 2003. Task Force Iron Horse, what the 4th Infantry Division was formed into, along with other various units attached to us. We initiated our combat operations with the airborne insertion of the 173rd Airborne Brigade into northern Iraq on the 26th of March 2003 to secure Bashur Airfield. The 1st Brigade Combat Team and the Division Cavalry Squadron crossed the LD on 16 April 2003 following a 600-kilometer road march and a passage of lines through 3 divisions and a Marine Expeditionary Force. Over the next 3 days, this brigade secured the Taji and Balad airfields, along with the cities of Samara, Tikrit, and Beji. Simultaneously, the 173rd Airborne Brigade secured the strategically important northern oil fields near Kirkuk, and a 3rd Maneuver Brigade downloaded ships in Kuwait. Digitally linked, these units were under a single command and control, while spread from northern Iraq to the port of Kuwait. Task Force Iron Horse conducted offensive and civil military operations based on the 4 pillars of our campaign plan. Those 4 pillars were military, governance, infrastructure, and economy. Throughout Operation Iraqi Freedom, Task Force Iron Horse remained offensive in military operations. Beginning in June, with Operation Peninsula Strike, Task Force Iron Horse conducted 11 major operations. In addition to these division-level operations, Iron Horse soldiers conducted 2,500 raids, more than 111,000 patrols, 9,000 static and flash checkpoints, 3,100 ambushes that resulted in 11,600 enemy detainees. In support of these operations, the 4th Aviation Brigade flew over 37,500 hours. Among those detained were 4 of the top 55 black lists, better known as the deck of cards, including, of course, blacklist number 1, the former dictator Saddam Hussein. Denying the enemy the means to attack coalition forces remained our priority. To this end, 94,000 tons of captured enemy ammunition was secured and consolidated or destroyed, with $500 million US currency seized from enemy elements. While conducting combat operations, Task Force Iron Horse engaged in the rebuilding of the economy and infrastructure of Iraq. 3 provincial governments were established, as well as numerous district, local, and city governments. The commanding general and brigade commanders expended nearly $100 million US in emergency relief funds. This money funded nearly 3,000 projects utilizing captured enemy funds, improving, among other things, the water, the sanitation, the electricity, and the overall quality of life for the people of Iraq. Task Force Iron Horse trained 2,500 Iraqi border police, 10,000 Iraqi Civil Defense Corps members, and 15,000 Iraqi police forces. Specifically, the bulk of my experiences in Iraq with the 4th Infantry Division revolved around Task Force Iron Horse's infrastructure repair initiatives and projects. Specifically, I had the pleasure of witnessing the following occur during my 12 months in Iraq, working with the division engineer section. A 300% increase in Iraqi power due to power plant startups, repairs, upgrades, and the restoration of power lines. The initiation of 40 projects to refurbish water treatment facilities. I saw a water treatment facility go from basically pumping water non-existent to running, hadn't been maintained in 20 years, to being fully functional and pumping chlorinated water to villages that hadn't seen water ever since it was built. Initiation of 10 sewage service projects. We saw the initiation of a comprehensive road improvement program for over 5,000 miles. We witnessed the refurbishment of 800 schools, 95 mosques, 137 medical facilities, and hundreds of other projects for children, such as soccer fields and youth centers. We saw the institution of a fuel distribution program to ensure quality among appropriate storage level maintenance and heating basic household items of heating oil, liquid propane, gas, and gasoline for your cars, and natural gas for their stoves. We also witnessed the creation of 3 Iraqi engineering consulting teams, one in each governance of our area, to conduct assessments on Iraqi infrastructure and to further work with the procurement of projects and contracts so they could build their own stuff in the future. These projects created over 60,000 jobs and have been a major boost to local economies in the Task Force Iron Horse area of operations. To decide which projects we funded, we conferred with Iraqi leaders at all levels. Every day our soldiers met with civic, religious, and tribal leaders, political parties, and local government bodies. These people were our partners, our advisors, and our consultants as we sought a balance between combat operations and the rebuilding of Iraq. I was forever proud of how well our soldiers were able to balance these 2 contrasting missions and remain focused on our mission for 12 months, woke up every single day for 12 months, no holiday, no Saturdays, no Sundays. The majority of Task Force Iron Horse returned home during March and April of this year. In fact, our last soldier redeployed home as of 22nd of April of this year. The initiatives that I just read to you were not without cost. 79 Task Force Iron Horse soldiers paid the ultimate price for the freedom of Iraq. Their sacrifice was not in vain, will not be forgotten. Soldiers and the families of the 4th Infantry Division will always remain steadfast in our commitment and loyal to our nation. Steadfast and loyal, I appreciate the opportunity to speak to you all today, and I want to thank my grandfather for his service and the rest of the greatest generation. I want to thank my grandfather for marrying his wife, and I want to thank them for having my father and for marrying his wife, and for having me and for raising me to be who I am, and to have the opportunity to go over there and make a difference. Thanks.
Thank you both, Colonel Monaco and Captain Monaco, for your dedication and for making a career in the military and protecting our backside every day. Thank you.